Hey guys, welcome back to my podcast. This is Toddie One Skip, and this is Issues with Toddie One Skip. And this is, I think, the third episode. And it's Issues with dun 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 death. Issues with death. So I do want to thank everybody who's listening. I'm here because of you. Not really. I don't think anybody's listening at this point. Anyway, death. So, unfortunately, I think that everybody has either dealt with somebody who has directly passed on and or knows somebody who has. So, what I want to talk about is kind of what happens after. Not so much the spiritual part of it, but more along the lines of the Keanu Reeves part of it. So he was asked, what does he think happens when people die? And his answer was, I think that the people that are left behind will miss them. And that's so true, right? I mean, it's simple. And, obviously, how we live our life is how we're remembered. And I heard dead people make no mistakes. So history kind of looks back favorably on dead people, I think, if there's any kind of bias at all, unless, there's exceptions, obviously. I'm not talking about a mass murderer, but the average person. And how do we go on? How do we cope with? How do we go on? In 2021, I lost I lost a few people, and I lost a pet, and I lost my dad. And I don't think I don't care. I was in my 50s. I don't think you're ever really ready to lose a parent, because these are the people that define you. Whether you have a relationship with them or not, they are part of the puzzle pieces that make you you. That's who they are. Anybody that takes up any kind of time in your life does that. There's just pieces that make up you and all of this you bring forth. So, how do we go on when we're no longer comfortable, when sometimes we can't even recognize ourselves when that person is gone? What kind of impact did they have on us? And how do we keep that spirit alive? And how do we cope? And how do we go on and keep ourselves from going into dark places? How do we do that? I think that part of it is to use the life that was lost to inspire whatever it is that they loved, or whatever it is that you love or you guys loved together, Because I think projects and keeping our minds busy helps keep other things away from us. Sadness, bad memories. So when I'm talking about death and that subject, the bottom line is we're all going, we're all going to die. We come on this earth, and once we can understand, really, we understand that we're only here for what ends up being a very short period of time, no matter how long you lived. So it's important what you leave behind. I've talked about legacy, and I will continue to do that, because as long as we're alive, we can always be better. We can always have change, and it's trying in the world in which we live in. But living with the loss of somebody makes it even harder. So when I lost people in 2021, the last person, well, I lost my cat December 30th, so the person before then I lost September 22nd, and my dad died in June, and then I had an uncle die in between then. And anyway, I got really sick in December, and I ended up in the hospital, and they thought I was having a stroke. And I mean, it was total vertigo. It wasn't even the word for it. Things just spun so quickly. I couldn't move my hand in a circle as fast as things spun. And my whole body got hot. And I could feel the sweat come up my body, come up my hair, and land like enough water from a swimming pool. I never physically experienced anything like that. I could not believe that your body could produce. It just made no sense to me. Anyway, I ended up in the hospital, and I was diagnosed with Lyme. But there's no doubt in my mind that the grief and the sorrow that I felt over the loss of the death of my dad, my ex-wife, who I was still very close with and who was younger than me. My dad, he was in his 80s. He caught COVID and kind of knew. Jen happened very quickly. I have a whole story on her in another channel of mine, or it's called Everybody Has a Story to Tell, EBHASTT on Instagram and YouTube channel, Everybody Has a Story to Tell. And she inspired that channel. I'm going to bring her up later because there's something that we've done that has made the process of healing much better. The point in me saying that I got sick, which was very true, is that I never believed that you could really make yourself sick physically from struggles that you can't touch, like in things that are not tangible, things that you can't physically touch. Yet when you worry and your mind keeps going to dark places, it does in fact affect your body, and you have to pay attention to that. I never learned that any more so than I did this past December 2021. So back to what do we do to help? Well, if we love that person, keep the story of them alive. That's their legacy. That's what's left behind. That's all that's really left behind. I'm sure that there's some tangible things too, but at the end of the day, when you smile and have that in your heart, you're not touching something tangible. If you are, it's sparking a memory from something that you couldn't touch, right? You can only remember. And that's really important because how we think directly shows how we live our life, right? Because it is our mind that takes over, our brain that takes over when all else goes to hell. It's not our heart. It's our brain that takes over. When bad things happen, it's because they check your brain. They don't check your heart. See if you had a dark heart. They check, like people like Ted Bundy and such. They check and see, what went wrong there. So it's our mind that keeps us in the dark space, and our mind that can help us go in the good space, regardless of where our heart is at. We have to change how we feel, and not how we feel so much as how we, live our lives. So keeping the spirit of somebody alive is very important. Telling good stories about them, true stories, obviously, as well, especially with generations of family members that will go on, because it's the stories that are going to be continued, being told through generations. So that's important, and the friends too. Also, I think what what we did was we started this. It's called Jen underscore under the bench is on IG, Instagram, and it's we started with these plaques. We bought these plaques, and they say catch yourself, because Jen often would take a breath. So that's my ex-wife. So I said I'd get back to her. So we got catch yourself on the plaque, as well as her name, Jen Morris, date and death, and hashtag rest in peace, Jen Morris. So those have traveled all over the world right now, because her friends have taken them on cruises, have taken them on holidays, have sent them to places, and these plaques have, appeared. There's not a lot of them, but we just started it. And in the meantime, doing that is making the people that miss her feel so much better. It doesn't take away that she's gone, but it makes it easier, because that's the whole thing. You're never going to take away the fact that somebody's gone. It's how do you live your life without that somebody? Don't think, how are things going to get better? They might not. They'll get different. How are they going to get different? Make sure that they get different first, then make them better. Each day you have to go forward and more so. That's just, I can't express how important that is. So all this in saying, I'm not trying to make light of the situation. I had horrible losses. This is what helped me, and I also go to therapy, which I think is really important. And I've said that before on my channel, my 2 episodes before. And what's really important as well, when, probably the most important, because this is what we have control over, how we live our life is how we're going to be remembered. Okay, so think about that. How we live our life, not by words we say, but by actions we follow through on. How we live our life is how we're going to be remembered. So remember that and live a good life. Okay? Until next time, this is Toddie One Skip with Issues. Also, anybody that wants to follow me, that'd be great. I have a YouTube channel. Everybody Has a Story to Tell, which I had spoken about, which was inspired by my ex's passing, Jen Morris. And you can get to her Instagram page by hashtag RIP Jen Morris. And we're happy to send you a plaque, and you can start your own. And also, you could follow me on Instagram at Issues with Toddie One Skip. And also, I'm on TikTok at Toddie One Skip. Until next time, until we meet again, Toddie One Skip out.